since the homemade stuff, like and the Mesa, and then step up to the Mesa Boogie.
Yeah.
How have you developed your taste for gear?
Well, when I got hired for the session work, I found out that my Mesa Boogie was not bad, but you know, the clean was pretty good. The overdrive was a bit saxophone-like. I needed heavier stuff, so I kind of bought my first Plexi Marshall because Jimi Hendrix was in my head, and then
which model was it?
Actually, it was a 50 watts metal panel, like aluminium panel 70, which I still have at home.
Okay.
And it's still one of my best amps.
Yeah.
I was lucky. I chose the right one without knowing.
Okay.
And then I bought more, and then I started to modify my Marshalls because I loved that. And then I started to modify my Mesa Boogie too, because I noticed the high gain on the Mesa was cool, the Mark IIB, which I had, but the Marshalls had some crunchy tones in the middle, mid gain section, and the Mesa didn't do that. And then I had that, and for my live gigs, I bought a Mesa copy, and then I modded that again to sound similar to my original Mesa Boogie with that mod. And then I came up with my own logo in the style of Mesa Boogie that wrote BLUGEAR. It looks exactly, and that's my nickname now.
Yeah.
So everybody called me BLUGEAR up there. So you know, you come on station, you see BLUGEAR, handwritten on a PCB for like electronics, and this was, I made it look like a Mesa Boogie logo. So anyway, this was this thing, and then you know. Then you found, you know, you learned some other guitar players in the studio. Somebody had a Fender Princeton. I bought a Princeton to get a different clean tone, and so then my AC30 was a big step in the studio again. And then you know, I had the classics. I had a Marshall, a Fender, a Vox, and a Boogie.
Yeah, all bases covered.
Yeah. And then, of course, in those days, I bought my Boss OD1 and my Tube Screamer, and I bought a 335 and, you know, different guitars. I had my 61 Strat at the age of 17.
Oh, wow.
And I was lucky because today it's way too much money.
Right.
Back in the days, it was 2,300 Deutschmarks. For today's prices, a joke. It was a bit more than... it was like 50% more than a good new one.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had a real 61 Strat.
Right.
And
at that time, did you think about the whole vintage aspect of it already?
I bought, after my Aria Pro, I bought a real Fender because you want to step up.
Yeah.
And this must have been somewhere in the 80s. And this was the shittiest Fender ever built, with the 3-point.
Big headstock and big 3 bolts.
Yeah, but with the thickest lacquer ever.
Okay.
And the neck was moving. I was on stage and had to do this.
Oh yeah.
To get the strings on the fretboard.
Yeah,
again.
it had the tilt ejection too.
And it was heavy, and anyway, so I had a friend who is a luthier. Or was a luthier? Is still. Oh, this is a long story. Interesting story.
Yeah.
Actually, a German friend working in a music store, and I asked him how to step up from my Fender. And he said, you know, there's the new Squire Japan vintage.
Oh, okay.
Get one of those copies of the old. So I bought those.
Right.
And he, being a luthier, making guitars himself, he knew that I was after the real Strat tone of Hank Marvin.
Right.
And then this guy, after I played like this Squire Strats, I wanted to step up and said, it's good, but... And he said, then you need a real old one.
Right.
And he moved to Hamburg, Germany, and worked for a music store called Number One, which is the first and biggest vintage dealer in Germany, and he did the repair jobs.
Okay.
And he called me up and said, I got this old 61 Strat for you, or a 64.
Hi there, Future Perf here from the editing room. Now, right around this point, Thomas and I were so deep in our conversation that I didn't notice my camera had stopped filming. But luckily, my audio recorder was still rolling and managed to capture the rest of this segment. Now, Thomas shared a lot of great stories and insight during this part. So instead of cutting it out from this PERFTalk episode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the audio run and you guys get to enjoy it podcast style. And then on screen, you get to enjoy a slideshow of photos that Thomas sent me taken from that time period. Now, fortunately, the AMP1, AMP-X, and PETLIC segments all have intact video, and I will be releasing those as soon as I finish editing them. So stay tuned. Now, let's jump back into this Perf Talk. Enjoy.
The 64 was celebrity owner, I couldn't afford. The 61 was mine because cheaper.
Nice.
And this guy today works at Fender here, did the Eric Johnson. He designed the Eric Johnson model.
Oh, wow.
He's here. Michael Frank Braun, maybe somebody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I'll look him up.
yeah, Michael Frank Braun. Yeah,
that's amazing because like that time everything was like, oh, let's go Floyd Rose, Humbucker, Super Strat, you know.
My heroes Blackmore, my heroes Gary Moore, and these days he had a red 61 Stratocaster that he played on the Corridors of Power album. That was more my tone than the humbuckers from the Wild Frontiers album that he had later on. I love that extra bite and the single coil clarity, but the gain. So that's my cup of tea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of horror stories like from that era.
I've been there.
A very good friend of mine, he builds classical guitars here in North Hollywood, and as a young teenager he had a 58 Sunburst Strat.
Oh yeah.
Okay. and he, as he was telling me the story, he just he just put on his angry face because he couldn't believe what he did, because so from the 58 Strat, it turned into, I think he traded it into an SG because humbuckers were you need a humbucker for the rock.
The thing of the day, right? Of course.
And anyway, several deals later, it ended up being a Yamaha 12-string acoustic guitar.
Oh, that's sad. That's so sad. Yeah. Oh.
So every time he sees like a 58 Sunburst Strat in auction or on an article, it's like,
yeah, his heart is broken again.
I know. So yeah, so I mean, it makes me happy that you got that really good advice.
Yeah, you know? I was lucky in my life a couple of times. I didn't do anything. I just had good friends, and this was a total coincidence because the guy was the son of a hi-fi Michael Frank Braun was the son of a guy that had a hi-fi studio, and me being the hi-fi nerd, the listener as well, went to that studio, and there I found out about the son that makes the guitar thing. It all connects. And that's a lesson until today. I mean, this world is so small,
right?
And we are all having the same passion, and so one leads to another.
Yeah.
And it's so great.
Now, what would be what was your perfect amp partner for the 61? Which amp of yours did you like best with it?
50 watt Plexi. I tell you why. Because it was the 100 watt. Sometimes sounds bigger in the studio. It is for certain things it's the ultimate thing, because Jimi Hendrix, maybe from the Electric Ladyland, the Voodoo Child. I'm not talking the wah-wah version.
Right.
I'm talking about this other version.
The other one, yeah.
Boah, that's a 100 watt. I'm sure that's this 100 watt, and the room tone is the biggest.
You can hear the walls shaking when it does that.
It's so huge. But the 50 watt, I could still play with my live band. I mean, it was on the edge because of being too loud in the club. A 50 watt is. I used the power amp saturation.
Okay.
Because Jimmy did. You know.
Well, and with those old Marshalls, you have to.
Yeah. It is if the Marshall is not driven hot enough, they shrink in tone.
Right.
And they have to bloom,
Yeah.
and it comes from the power amp stage. That was my first lesson. It comes from the power amp stage.
Right.
And then you can put some pedals in front and you reduce the volume like Richie Black. You know, that's the thing. Hot driven man.
It reminds me because like one of my heroes in the Philippines, his status he's kind of like Eric Clapton status in the Philippines, and he goes, well, you know what the secret to Marshalls are? The secret to Marshalls is this. Okay, what you do is take your finger and do that.
Exactly. Yeah. You know,
dime everything
and mean it.
Yeah.
And for me, a Marshall is also a tone teacher.
Right.
If you want to become a proper rock player, play a Plexi.
Yes.
At least for a certain while, and then this affects your interaction with the guitar tone and the guitar.
Yes.
I mean, just look at AC/DC. That's the perfect example. You don't need more gain. It's all about this energy.
Yeah.
You know.
And if you listen closely to all the the landmark Plexi recordings, you know, early Van Halen, there's not a lot of gain.
No,
it's not.
It's not, and it's not needed.
Yeah.
But it requires the player to become a rock, you know, player. It teaches you how to rock.
Yeah.
You know, and then at least if you do that for a certain period of time, it's like learning a style, like an approach to the guitar. Then you can play anything.
Yeah.
It gets in your fingers, it gets in your system, it gets in your body.
Yeah.
So
I understand that perfectly, because at one point I had a full stack 78 JMP, you know, and I had it like right in that corner, full stack, and single channel.
Yep.
And the misconception is usually people think Fender clean, Marshall dirty, right? But the Marshall Plexis have the most beautiful clean sound.
Absolutely.
You know, you just have to know how to find it.
Yeah.
You know, and again, if the secret to the Marshall tone is this, the secret to the Marshall clean sound is this.
Yeah.
Lower your guitar volume. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, when I see you play like in your videos, I mean, right now in front of me, you know, you dig in and you get that nice bar, and then suddenly, like it's like magic. Then suddenly, oh, there's a clean sound. Oh, you did the pinky thing.
Yeah, of course. I'm all about pinky.
Yeah. If you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell.
I stole this from Richie Blackmore. This is where I learned it, you know, because back in the days there was no 2-channel amps.
No.
And Jimi Hendrix, they had their fuzz, and they used the pinky or the volume.
Right.
And that's all they had, and the fuzz phase gave them extra gain and extra clarity.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I also learned, is a booster has two aspects to me.
Mm.
It's more gain and more clarity when you reduce the volume on the guitar.
Yes.
And I was always more into this more clarity thing.
Yes.
This was my main focus besides more gain.
Yes.
And so, you know, the Jimi Hendrix fuzz phase aspect is this kind of, my amp is on fire, you know, it is you know when he plays what's this song, I don't know. This is just a Marshall tone, but he has this extra fuzz in front of, and then it always sounded to me like the amp is catching fire any minute. And
then later on, the preamp section of the Univibe too.
Yeah,
that adds a little extra layer. Yeah.
But then you know.
That's amazing. And I don't know. I don't know if it's the same with you, but do you find that you keep doing this stuff even when you're not plugged in?
Of course.
I thought I was the only one.
No. It's like this is all automatic because it's subconscious,
Right.
and in your brain, when you play, you don't have the time to think. I should have more volume here. You just do it. And
I need this at 6.
Yeah, and this is like even when I talk, my brain, maybe I have the feeling of while we're talking, I have to do my finger goes like to 6.
It's like the Ingve story where he drove his sister crazy because of the clicking.
Yeah. But this is a Blackmore thing, you know.
I think his story was he kept doing it even when it was not plugged in.
Yeah.
You know, it's part of our thing.
Yeah, sure.
Now, so Plexi, which now brings us to these things.
Well,
so what was the first inspiration for you to come up with the amp one?
Well, one. Basically,
oh, actually, hold on.
Yeah.
Yes. Before we move on.
Movie recording has been stopped automatically.
Oh no.
2 cabinet, you know.
That's something difficult to understand for players who have not experienced it.
Yeah. And there's a whole new generation. They grew up on plugins and whatever modeling.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, which is okay, but it's like, man, try to tame a Plexi.